The rain battered the skylight of Clara Henshaw's drafting room, a staccato rhythm that matched her racing thoughts. It was late past midnight, and the office was a cocoon of shadows, lit only by the warm glow of her desk lamp. Clara, a 38-year-old architect with a penchant for historic restorations, hunched over a set of blueprints spread across her table. The plans were for the Haverford Building, a crumbling Victorian edifice in downtown Philadelphia she'd been hired to resurrect. Its spires and gargoyles had whispered to her from the moment she'd seen it, promising secrets beneath its weathered stone. She traced a finger along the inked lines, her brow furrowing. The blueprints were originals, dated 1887, their edges brittle and yellowed. The client, a reclusive developer named Victor Grayson, had insisted on a full structural analysis before renovations began. Clara had spent weeks poring over them, cataloging beams and arches, but tonight, something felt off. A wall in the east wing didn't align with the building's symmetry, too thick, too stubborn against the design's logic. She pulled a ruler from her cluttered desk, measuring the anomaly again. 12 inches where 8 should suffice. A mistake? No, the Victorians were meticulous. She flipped to a cross-section, her pulse quickening. There it was, a faint, hand-drawn line within the wall, unlabeled, invisible unless you knew to look. A hidden compartment? Her mind leapt to possibilities: storage, a safe, a priest hole from some forgotten scandal. Clara grabbed her notepad, sketching the outline, her pencil scratching against the quiet. The Haverford's history was murky. Built by industrialist Elias Haverford, it had housed his family's shipping empire until his mysterious death in 1890, ruled a suicide, though rumors of murder lingered. The building had sat derelict for decades, its rooms sealed like a tomb. Grayson's sudden interest in restoring it had piqued Clara's curiosity, but this discovery shifted her intrigue to unease. She rummaged through her files for the surveyor's report, cross-referencing the east wing. No mention of a cavity. Odd modern scans should have caught it. Unless someone had buried the data. Clara leaned back, chewing her lip. She'd need to see it in person, but the site was locked tight, Grayson's security as paranoid as his demeanor. Tomorrow she'd push for access. As she reached for her coffee, a folded corner of the blueprint caught her eye. She smoothed it out, revealing a scribble in faded ink. Not the architect's precise hand, but a hurried scrawl. March 9th, 12 to March 15th, 11. Numbers, no context. A code? She copied it into her notepad, her architect's brain itching to decode it. Was it a lock combination, a reference to the plans? She scanned the sheet again, and there, tucked beneath a gargoyle sketch, another clue. A tiny symbol, a triangle with a dot inside, like an alchemist's mark. Clara's breath hitched. This wasn't a drafting error. It was deliberate, a message hidden for over a century. She pulled her laptop closer, searching Haverford Building secrets. The hits were sparse, old newspaper clippings about Elias's death. A grainy photo of the man in a stiff collar, his eyes hollow. One article mentioned a missing fortune, vanished after his demise, fueling the murder theories. Could the compartment hold it? And why surface now? The rain softened, leaving a hush that amplified the creak of the floorboards behind her. Clara froze. She was alone, or should have been. The office was a third-floor walk-up, no elevator, no late-night cleaners. She turned slowly, her lamp casting long shadows across the room. Nothing. Just her coat rack, a silent sentinel by the door. Still, her skin prickled. She grabbed her phone, dialing her assistant, Theo, a lanky grad student with a knack for research. It rang twice before his sleepy voice answered. Clara? It's 1 a.m. I know, she whispered, eyes darting to the windows. The Haverford plans, there's something weird. A hidden space, coded numbers. I need you to dig into Elias Haverford's death. Anything odd, anything buried. Theo groaned but agreed. Fine, but you owe me coffee. Be careful, okay? She hung up, locking the blueprints in her desk drawer. The symbol, triangle, dot nagged at her. She sketched it again, her mind spinning through architectural history. Masonic? No, too simple. It felt personal, tied to Elias. As she packed up, a shadow flickered past the skylight, brief, human-shaped, gone. Her heart thudded. Rain trick, she told herself, but grabbed her keys and left, the blueprint's secrets trailing her into the night. The next morning, Clara stood before the Haverford Building, its Gothic facade glowering under a gray sky. Grayson met her at the gate, a wiry man in his 50s with a perpetual frown. "Structural check?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Something like that," Clara said, forcing a smile. "East Wing's got some quirks." He grunted, unlocking the door. Inside, dust coated the air, chandeliers draped in cobwebs. She beelined for the East Wing, her tape measure ready. The wall matched the plans, solid, unyielding. She tapped it, listening. "Hello?" Grayson watched her, his eyes too sharp. "Find something?" he asked. "Just checking," she lied, her mind on the code, March 9th, 12th to March 15th, 11. Whatever it unlocked, it was here. And someone, Grayson, or whoever stalked her skylight, knew it too. The Haverford Building's east wing smelled of mildew and time, its high ceilings lost in gloom despite the weak daylight filtering through cracked windows. Clara Henshaw knelt by the anomalous wall, her tape measure stretched taut against the plaster. 12 inches thick, just as the blueprints promised, but the hollow thud when she rapped her knuckles confirmed it. A hidden compartment lurked within. Victor Grayson hovered nearby, his shadow long and restless across the warped floorboards. His presence grated, too attentive, too quiet for a man who claimed this was just a routine restoration. "Everything in order?" Grayson asked, his voice a low rasp, eyes glinting like a hawk's. Clara forced a casual nod, tucking the tape measure into her satchel. "Just double-checking. Old buildings have quirks, settling bad measurements. You know how it is." He didn't smile, just watched as she stood, brushing dust from her jeans. "I expect precision, Miss Henshaw. This project's on a tight schedule." "Precision's my specialty," she replied, meeting his gaze. But her mind was elsewhere, on the code from the blueprints, March 9th, 12th to March 15th, 11, and that strange symbol, the triangle with a dot. She needed to test the wall, find an entry, but not with Grayson breathing down her neck. "I'll need a few hours alone here tomorrow. Bring my equipment, run some scans." He hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Fine. 8 a.m. Don't touch anything you shouldn't." With that, he turned and strode out, leaving her in the cavernous silence. Clara exhaled, pulling her flashlight from her bag. The wall stared back, its plaster unmarred, no seams, no panels. She traced its length, 10 feet of blank surface flanked by ornate molding. The hollow sound persisted, strongest near the center. She pressed her ear to it, listening. A faint hum, airflow? Vibration? It suggested depth beyond a simple closet. She stepped back, sketching the wall in her notepad, marking the spot. Her phone buzzed. "Theo." She answered, keeping her voice low. "Find anything?" "Yeah," Theo said, his tone excited. "Elias Haverford's death? Messy. Official stories: suicide, shot himself in his office, top floor, 1890. But the coroner's reports got holes. Entry wounds odd, like someone else held the gun. Family claimed theft, gold, deeds gone overnight. Cops called it a rumor, but a maid swore she saw a man in a cloak leaving that night." "A cloak?" Clara frowned, glancing at the wall. "Sounds theatrical. Or deliberate," Theo countered. "Here's the kicker, Elias was obsessed with puzzles. Built trick doors in his mansion, false panels, secret stairs. Haverford Building might be the same." Clara's pulse quickened. "The blueprints have a code, numbers, a symbol. Could be a lock." "Send it to me," Theo said. "I'll run it against cipher tables." "Be careful, Clara. If Grayson's pushing this Reno, he might know more than he's letting on." She hung up, texting him the numbers and symbol. A trick door made sense. Victorian architects loved their eccentricities. She tapped the wall again, harder, and this time a soft click echoed. A section shifted barely an inch, revealing a hairline crack. Clara's breath caught. She wedged her fingers in, prying. The panel swung inward, groaning on hidden hinges, exposing a narrow chamber. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust. Her flashlight swept over stone walls, a low ceiling, maybe 5 feet by 8. Empty, save for a wooden box in the corner, its lid carved with that same triangle dot symbol. She knelt, heart pounding, and lifted the lid. Papers, yellowed letters, a leather journal, a brass key. She grabbed the journal, flipping it open. Elias Haverford's handwriting sprawled across the pages, frantic. "They know. The fortune's safe, but not for long. If I fall, the truth's in the walls." A noise, footsteps, snapped her back. She stuffed the journal and key into her satchel, shoving the box back as the panel clicked shut behind her. She spun, flashlight off, and saw a figure in the doorway, tall, broad, a hood obscuring their face. Not Grayson. The stranger froze, then bolted, shoes slapping against the floor. Clara gave chase, weaving through the east wing's maze of columns and debris. The figure vanished into the foyer, the front door slamming shut. She reached it, peering out. Rain streaked the street, but no one was there. Just a wet footprint, too large for Grayson's wiry frame. Her stomach twisted. Someone else was hunting Haverford's secrets. Back at her office, Clara locked the door and spread the journal on her desk. Elias's entries were a jumble: business deals, paranoia, names she didn't recognize. One stood out: J. Marwood betrayed me. The gold's his price. Marwood could be an ancestor of Grayson's? She decoded the numbers with Theo's help later that night. Clock. The Haverford had a massive clock tower. Did it tie to the key? She needed to return, but the shadow in the hood haunted her. Grayson's urgency, the stranger's pursuit. Something modern was at play, tethered to Elias's long-buried crime. Tomorrow she'd climb the tower, key in hand. Tonight, she slept with the journal under her pillow, the rain her uneasy lullaby. The Haverford Building loomed against a bruised morning sky, its Gothic silhouette stark as Clara Henshaw approached at 8 a.m. sharp. Victor Grayson waited at the gate, his thin frame bundled in a raincoat, his eyes flicking over her tool bag with thinly veiled suspicion. She'd packed light, flashlight, notepad, the brass key from the hidden compartment, but the journal stayed locked in her office safe. Its cryptic warnings and the name J. Marwood gnawed at her, a thread she couldn't yet pull. East Wing again? Grayson asked, unlocking the door with a jangle of keys. And the clock tower, Clara said, keeping her tone brisk. Structural integrity check. Old mechanisms can destabilize a building. He grunted, leading her inside. The foyer's dust swirled as they passed, her mind replaying last night's chase. The hooded figure, the wet footprint. Grayson's wiry build didn't match, but his caginess set her teeth on edge. Was he part of this or just a pawn? She split off at the east wing, confirming the panel was still shut, its secret intact. Then she climbed the spiral stairs to the clock tower, Grayson trailing reluctantly. The ascent was claustrophobic, the stone walls damp and narrow, the air growing colder with each step. At the top, a cavernous chamber opened. Gears the size of wagon wheels, rusted but intact, ticked faintly beneath a massive clock face. Its hands stood frozen at 3:47, the glass cracked but glowing with weak sunlight. Clara scanned the room, her flashlight beam catching on cobwebs and grime. The journal's decoded word, clock, echoed in her head. She circled the mechanism, searching for a lock, a slot, anything the key might fit. Grayson lingered by the stairs, arms crossed. Find what you need? He called, his voice tight. Still looking, she replied, her fingers brushing a gear panel. A faint seam caught her eye, a small square hatch, barely visible, with that triangle dot symbol etched into it. Her pulse jumped. She slipped the key from her bag, its brass warm against her palm, and inserted it. A soft click, and the hatch popped open, revealing a leather pouch wedged inside. Grayson stepped closer. What's that? Just debris, Clara lied, palming the pouch and shutting the hatch. Old buildings hide junk. She turned, blocking his view, and felt the pouch's weight. Something hard inside, papers maybe. His frown deepened, but he didn't press, retreating to the stairs with a muttered, "Hurry up." Alone, Clara opened the pouch. A folded letter, a gold coin stamped with Elias Haverford's initials, and a tiny blueprint scrap. Numbers scrawled across it, 81225186158184. Another code. The letter was in Elias's hand, dated 1890. If I'm gone, the vault's below. Marwood's greed will bury us all. Trust no one. Below? A basement vault? The Haverford's plans showed no such level. Her phone buzzed Theo. She stepped to the clock face for signal, answering quietly. What VE you got? Marwood's a ghost, Theo said. James Marwood, Elias's partner, disappeared after the death. No grave, no record. But get this, Victor Grayson's middle name is Marwood. Family tie, maybe? Clara's stomach dropped. Grayson's linked to this? Could be. Also, that symbol triangle, duh. It's alchemical, means gold. Elias might have hidden his fortune. She hung up, mind racing. Grayson, as Marwood's descendant, explained his push to renovate. access to the vault, the gold. But the hooded figure suggested competition. She decoded the new numbers with a quick cipher key from memory. Haverford. A signature or a clue to the vault's location. A creak from the stairs snapped her alert. She stuffed the pouch into her bag as Grayson reappeared, his face harder now. "Time's up, Miss Henshaw. Found your structural issues." "Enough for now," she said, brushing past him. His hand grazed her arm, lingering too long, and she fought a shiver. Downstairs, she excused herself to fetch equipment and bolted to her car, the pouch a ticking bomb against her chest. At the office, she spread the blueprint scrap beside the originals. No basement, but a subfloor sketch showed an odd hatch near the west wing. Unlabeled, overlooked. The vault? She needed to check, but Grayson's grip was tightening. She called Theo. "Meet me tonight, 10 p.m. Haverford. Bring tools, we're going under." "You sure?" Theo asked, wary. "That shadow you saw?" "I'm sure," she cut in. Elias hid something big, and Grayson's not the only one after it. Night fell heavy. The Haverford a black monolith as Clara and Theo slipped through a side entrance she'd scouted. The west wing was a maze of decayed finery, marble floors, faded murals. The hatch was there, beneath a rug, its edges rusted shut. Theo pried it open with a crowbar, revealing a ladder into darkness. Clara descended, flashlight piercing the gloom. A stone chamber sprawled below, empty save for a steel door, its lock bearing the triangle dot symbol. She inserted the key, hard hammering. The door groaned open, and inside, gold glinted, coins, bars, a fortune untouched. But a shadow moved behind her, and Theo's yelp cut the air. She spun, light catching a hooded figure, tall, silent, a gun in hand. "Step back," a muffled voice ordered. "That's mine." The air in the Haverford Building's subfloor chamber hung thick with dust and menace, the gold's faint gleam dwarfed by the hooded figure's silhouette. Clara Henshaw froze, her flashlight trembling as it framed the gun in the stranger's gloved hand. Theo stood rigid beside her, crowbar dangling uselessly, his breath a shallow rasp. The steel door to the vault gaped open behind them, Elias Haverford's lost fortune a glittering lure that had drawn this shadow from the dark. "Step back," the figure repeated, voice low and muffled through a scarf, gender obscured. "That gold's mine?" Clara's mind raced, piecing fragments, the blueprints, codes, Elias's journal, Grayson's Marwood link. This wasn't Grayson, the frame was taller, broader. "A rival?" She raised her hand slowly, stalling. "Yours? It's been here a century. Who are you?" The figure shifted, gun steady. "Someone who knows what Elias hid." "You're an over-your-head architect. Walk away." "Elias's death wasn't suicide," Clara said, testing. "Marwood killed him for this, didn't he? You're after his legacy." A pause, then a dry chuckle. "Smart. But it's bigger than Marwood. Move, or I paint the walls with you." Theo edged forward, voice shaky. "Look, we don't want trouble." The gun swung toward him. "Quiet." Clara grabbed Theo's arm, pulling him back. Her eyes darted, ladder behind, vault ahead, no cover. The pouch from the clock tower weighed in her bag, its let her a lifeline if she could use it. She needed time. "The blueprints," she said, voice steady despite her thudding heart. "They've got more codes, locations, maybe more gold. I can decode them. Kill us and you're blind." The figure hesitated, gun dipping slightly. "Show me." Clara eased her bag open, pulling the blueprint scrap with 81225186151184. "This says Haverford, but there's another layer. I need my notes, tools back at my office." A lie, but plausible. The figure stepped closer, scarf slipping to reveal a glimpse of a sharp jaw. "Male, maybe." "You're stalling. Decode it now." "I can't," she snapped, risking defiance. "Not without the full set. Let us go and I'll get you the rest." The gun raised again, but a distant thud echoed footsteps above, heavy and deliberate. The figure tensed, head snapping toward the hatch. "Grayson," he muttered, then lunged, snatching the scrap from Clara's hand. Before she could react, he bolted for a side tunnel she hadn't noticed, vanishing into the dark. Clara exhaled, knees weak. Theo clutched the crowbar, pale. "Who the hell was that?" "Not Grayson," she said, grabbing her flashlight. "But he's tied to this. Come on upstairs, now." They scrambled up the ladder, sealing the hatch. The west wing was silent, but the front door hung ajar, rain drifting in. Grayson's car was gone, he'd been here, maybe spooked the gunman. Clara's mind churned, 2 players, 1 vault, and her in the crosshairs. Back at her office, she locked the door, spreading the journal and pouch contents on her desk. Theo paced, jittery. "We need the cops, Clara. That guy had a gun." "Not yet," she said, flipping to Elias's last entry. "The truth's in the walls. Marwood's deal with the order." "Order? A cult? A syndicate?" She Googled Haverford Order, landing on a 19th century footnote, the Order of the Gilded Triad, an alchemical sect tied to Philadelphia's elite. Their symbol, triangle, dot. Elias must have crossed them, hid the gold to spite them. A letter from the pouch mentioned a vault below, but another line caught her, the third key's in the spire. Third key? She had one from the compartment, one from the clock. A spire meant the roof, gargoyles, turrets. "Theo, the roof's next. Tonight." "You're insane," he groaned, but grabbed his coat. "What's Grayson's angle?" "Marwood's heir," she said. "Wants the gold, but he's not alone. That gunman's with the order, or what's left of it." They returned under cover of dark, the Haverford spire a jagged shadow against the storm. The roof access was a rusted hatch, its lock yielding to Clara's picks. Wind-whipped as they climbed, gargoyles leering from perches. She aimed her flashlight at the tallest spire, spotting the symbol etched near its base. A panel clicked under her touch, revealing a hollow, a third key, iron, heavy with age. A shout below, Grayson's voice, angry. Lights flared in the windows. "He's here," Theo hissed. Clara pocketed the key. "We've got what we need. Down fast." They descended, but the foyer swarmed Grayson and two men, one the hooded figure, unmasked now, sharp-faced, late 40s, eyes cold. Grayson pointed. "Her. She's got it." The gunman raised his weapon, but Clara bolted, Theo behind her, through a side hall. Shots rang out, splintering wood. They ducked into the east wing, barricading the door with a chair. "The compartment," Clara gasped. "It's our out." She pried the panel open, shoving Theo inside as footsteps pounded closer. The chamber was tight, but a draft hinted at a passage. They crawled, emerging in a basement stairwell, freedom if they could reach it. The basement stairwell of the Haverford Building was a throat of shadows, its air damp and heavy as Clara Henshaw and Theo stumbled from the hidden compartment's passage. The third key, iron, etched with the triangle dot symbol, burned in her pocket, a piece of Elias Haverford's puzzle she hadn't yet placed. Above, the muffled shouts of Victor Grayson and the gunman echoed, their pursuit relentless. Clara's flashlight swept the narrow space, stone walls, a rusted grate ahead, the faint drip of water. No time to think, only move. "Which way?" Theo whispered, his voice tight, crowbar gripped like a lifeline. Clara pointed to the grate. "There. It's a storm drain, has to lead out." She knelt, prying at the metal with her multi-tool. It groaned, loosening just as a crash sounded above, the east wing door splintering under force. "Hurry," she hissed, shoving the grate aside. A dark tunnel yawned beyond, its walls slick with moss. They crawled in, the passage barely wide enough for Theo's lanky frame. Clara led, her flashlight beam bouncing off curved stone, the air growing colder as they descended. The shouts faded, replaced by the gurgle of runoff. Her mind raced, 3 keys, a vault of gold, Grayson's Marwood lineage, the gunman's order. Elias's journal had warned of a deal gone sour, a fortune hidden to thwart betrayal. The spire key had to unlock the final secret, but where? The tunnel widened, spilling them into a chamber beneath the Haverford's foundation. A steel hatch dominated the far wall, its surface pitted but solid, the triangle dot symbol carved above a triple keyhole lock. Clara's breath caught. This is it, the real vault. Theo wiped sweat from his brow. 3 keys for 3 locks? Why? Elias was paranoid, she said, pulling the brass key from the compartment, the clock tower key, and the spire's iron one. Split the access, maybe to protect it from Marwood. She inserted them, one by one. Each turned with a satisfying click, the hatch shuttering open to reveal a cavernous room. Gold-glittered bars, coins, jewelry piled beside crates of papers, a fortune dwarfing the first vault's haul. But a new sound froze her, a scrape from the tunnel. She swung her light, catching the gunman's sharp face emerging, gun raised. "Stop," he barked, scarf gone, revealing a scar across his cheek. "You've got no claim here." Clara stepped forward, shielding Theo. "The Order of the Gilded Triad, you're their remnant, aren't you? Elias stole this from you." His eyes narrowed. "He was one of us until he turned. That gold's our legacy, not some architect's toy." "Then why's Grayson involved?" She pressed, buying time as Theo edged toward a crate. "Grayson's a fool," the man sneered. "Thinks he's Marwood reborn, claiming kin. We let him dig, kept him blind. You're the problem. Too clever." A thud above, Grayson's voice, closer now. The gunman flinched, distracted. Theo lunged, swinging the crowbar. It cracked against the man's arm, the gun clattering free. Clara dove for it, but the gunman tackled her, pinning her to the stone. Theo swung again, missing, as Grayson burst in, wild-eyed, a pistol in hand. "Enough!" Grayson roared, aiming at the gunman. "It's mine, Marwood's blood, my right." The gunman laughed, bitter. "You're a puppet, Victor. The order pulls the strings." Clara rolled free, grabbing the fallen gun as Grayson fired. The bullet grazed the gunman's shoulder, blood blooming. He snarled, lunging at Grayson, and the two grappled, crashing into a gold stack. Clara pulled Theo back, heart pounding. "We're out now." They ran for the tunnel, the fight raging behind. The drain stretched endlessly, their breaths echoing, until a faint glow signaled an exit. A street grate near the river. Clara kicked it open, and they tumbled into the night, rain soaking them as they sprinted to her car. At the office, locked tight, Clara spread the vault's papers. Ledgers, deeds, a confession from Elias. "The order funded my empire. I took their gold when they demanded my soul. Marwood sold me out, killed me. The truth's here, for the finder. Proof of murder, a century old." Theo slumped in a chair. "Cops, Clara. Now." She nodded, dialing 911, reporting a break-in at the Haverford, vague enough to draw them without spilling all. But the third key's purpose lingered. Why 3 locks? She rifled the papers again, finding a map. Haverford lands, a second site marked depository, miles west. Another vault? Sirens wailed as her phone buzzed. Grayson's number. She answered, wary. "What?" "You've got it," he rasped, voice strained. "The order's man's down, but they'll come. Give it back, or you're dead." "Too late," she said, hanging up as lights flashed outside. Police swarmed the Haverford, arresting Grayson, the gunman wounded but alive. Clara handed over the confession, keeping the map. The gold was evidence now, but the second site called a loose end, a threat still breathing. The rain had stopped, leaving Philadelphia's streets slick and reflective as Clara Henshaw sat in her office, the Haverford Building's chaos hours behind her. Police lights had faded. Victor Grayson and the scarred gunman, identified as Paul Drayton, a drifter with ties to occult circles, were in custody, the gold vault sealed as evidence. Theo had gone home, shaken but safe, while Clara pored over the map from the vault's papers. A second site, labeled Depository, sat 20 miles west, an old Haverford estate, abandoned since Elias's death. The 3 keys, the order, Marwood's betrayal, it all pointed there. She should have rested, let the cops handle it, but Grayson's threat, "they'll come," and the map's pull were too strong. The order of the Gilded Triad wasn't finished. Drayton was a foot soldier, not the head. Clara grabbed her bag, the brass, clock, and spire keys jangling, and drove into the night, the city yielding to rural dark. The depository was a ruin, overgrown ivy choking a Georgian manor, its windows black. Clara parked a half-mile back, approaching on foot, flashlight dimmed. The front door hung ajar, hinges rusted. Inside, decay reigned, moth-eaten curtains, a grand staircase sagging. The map marked a cellar, and she found it beneath a trapdoor in the foyer, its lock triple-keyed, triangle dot symbol glaring. She inserted the keys, breath held. The door creaked open, revealing stone steps into a crypt-like chamber. Her light swept over shelves, gold bars, ledgers, artifacts, but no vault, just a table with a single document. She grabbed it. Elias's will, unwitnessed, dated the day he died. "To my betrayers in the order, I curse you with this hoard. Marwood took my life, I take your future. The gold's yours, but the truth damns you." A confession followed. Marwood, an order initiate, shot Elias to seize the fortune, staging it as suicide. The will hid the truth, a final jab from the grave. Footsteps crunched outside. Clara doused her light, crouching behind a shelf as 2 figures entered. Hooded, silent, one limping. Drayton's scar flashed in her memory, but these were new. "She's here," a woman's voice hissed. "The car, Henshaw's." Clara's heart sank. The order had tracked her. She clutched the will, her only leverage. The limping man spoke, gravelly. "Find her. The will's the last piece. Proof's our ruin." They split, searching. Clara slipped to a side passage, its walls damp, leading to a collapsed exit, blocked but noisy. She kicked a stone, drawing them, then doubled back, sprinting up the stairs as shouts erupted. In the foyer, she barricaded the trapdoor with a chair, buying seconds. Headlights flared. Police, alerted by Theo after she'd texted him her plan. The hooded pair burst up, but sirens wailed, freezing them. Clara stepped forward, will in hand. "It's over." Elias named Marwood. "Your order's done." The woman lunged, but cops swarmed, cuffing them. The limping man glared, unmasked, an older face, weathered, furious. "You've no idea what you've stirred," he spat. Clara handed the will to a detective, exhaustion crashing in. The gold was seized, the order's remnants exposed. A shadow sect dwindled to fanatics, chasing Elias's curse. Grayson's arrest tied him to Marwood's bloodline, his greed a pawn in their game. The Haverford secrets were public now. Murder, gold, betrayal. Its restoration halted. Days later, Clara sat in her drafting room. Blueprints cleared, the case closed. Theo brought coffee, grinning. "You're a lunatic, but we won." "Did we?" she mused, staring at the Haverford's plans. The order's leader had vanished, Drayton's boss, maybe, and that threat lingered. She'd found a final note in the will's margin, the fourth key's lost. Beware. 4 keys, not 3? A myth or a deeper vault? She locked the thought away, sketching a new project, modern, clean, no shadows. The Haverford was history's burden now, its blueprints burned in her mind. But as rain tapped the skylight, a flicker crossed it, brief, human-shaped, gone. Clara smiled grimly. Some mysteries never stayed buried.